Hello? Is anybody there? It it's telling me I'm live, but I don't feel particularly live. Hello? Hi guys. Is anybody here? Hello, hello. I have to tell you, so far this live thing is an epic fail for me, and I'm usually pretty good at figuring things out. It kept mentioning something about encoding, that you needed to encode something. I have not a clue about whether I am actually, in fact, live or whether I'm talking to myself. If I'm talking to myself, I'm going to have to assume that I just don't have a single clue what I'm doing, which I don't, in fairness. So, what I'm going to do is to ask you to be a little bit indulgent, because this is brand new to me. I really wanted to talk to you today about this whole thing about aging and how we feel about it and all of the issues that come up for us. But I'm alone in the desert here. I really am, and I need help. Hello? It's telling me I'm live, but I'm not live. So, I guess what I can do is just go on and say all the things I wanted to say and apologize to you and see what I can figure out for the next time around, because I have clearly screwed this up. So forgive me. Before I start, I just wanted to tell you how nice is it to have Miss Whiteout on again. Been a long time since I've done that, and I'm happy to kind of take her out of her temporary retirement. And I do love her, I really do. She was one of my all-time favorites and still is. Okay, what I want to talk to you about today is aging. And the more I thought about aging and the more I thought about the issues that we have with aging, in truth, I don't think it's about aging at all. It's issues that we have at every stage of our lives. And every time we go through it, it's monumental to us. Whether we're young and trying to fit in, whether we don't feel attractive or we're not the cool girls, or we're kind of isolated, or we don't have a great relationship with our parents, or we're not lucky enough to have a stable home life. There are stages, every stage of life has its issues. Some of the things that come up for us, though, when we are older is that we have a perception. When we're younger, the perception is the horizon's way out there. So we've got loads of time and we can figure things out. And if they don't work, yes, they're monumental at the moment, but we never think in finite terms, like how much time is left. What can I do now? Am I fragile? Am I at the mercy of the world? And I think it starts, I was thinking about it, there are so many different stages of aging for us. I think early on it probably starts with, well, for many women, I think it probably starts in their 30s when they see that first wrinkle or that first gray hair or the first indication that they're not young anymore. And I think as we get a little bit older, what happens is that our kids grow up and the kids move out, and then all of a sudden you are left there trying to figure out your place in the world. Who are you if you're not their mother? Who are you if you're not somebody's wife? It makes you think about who you are as a person and where your life is headed. There are so many other things that go into it. If a child moves a long distance away, I mean, my son is on the other side of the United States and I get to see him very rarely, and it's painful. But I remember the day he first moved out for the first time. He was very young, and he and a friend moved out. They moved about a mile down the road into an apartment that they shared, and they were so excited to be on their own. They got 2 cats. They fixed up a place with a lot of stuff that they took from my place and the other guy's mother's place. And they felt very independent, and I felt so alone. The night that he left, when he closed the door, and my realization was nobody else was going to open that door, was terrible. It was really terrible. Fortunately, I had a crazy busy job, and I was able to work late into the night. I didn't have my dinner till 10 o'clock at night that night, and I had it stretched out on my bed watching television with tears rolling down my face. So it was definitely an adjustment. For some women, they love it when their kids grow up and they're finally free to do the things that they've wanted to do. And if you have a wonderful relationship with your husband or your significant other, then it's great because you have time to rediscover who you are and what place you have in each other's life, all about the kids. But I think that kind of leads into another part of this, and that is, what about the women who suddenly find themselves middle-aged or more, and all of a sudden they get that crushing information from their significant other, presumably husband at that point, that, hey, guess what? I'm not happy in this marriage and I'm leaving. Sometimes they leave for another woman, which is doubly devastating, because not only are you here after many, many years of just being his wife and just being the mother of your kids, to being left and perceived as not good enough. What was it about you? Could you have been different? Could you have been better? Could you have been more supportive? Could you have been more loving? And we tend to blame ourselves for things like that. But it's really not about you, and it's really not about us. It's about what goes on in their lives. And for a lot of men, they go through that midlife crisis where they need to feel young again. They need to suddenly get that Corvette convertible or the equivalent, and they need to go riding around town with their hair blowing in the breeze if they have hair. And they need to find that young girl who's going to make them feel young and attractive and vibrant and as if they have life by the tail. So there are all of those things that make our lives really, really tough. And here you are, you may not have worked for many, many years. Maybe you were a stay-at-home mom. If you did work, it could have been just a little job to supplement the income. But suddenly he left, and you are left in a far worse financial position, having to worry about all of the things that you need to pay for and figure out and live with. It's not easy. And a lot of women go through a very tough transition at that point. But I think the toughest times that we have in our lives, and I've said this before so many times, create the greatest growth in us. It really makes us the people that we ultimately are. And for that, we really have to be grateful, not at the time that it's happening, certainly. You know, it takes time for us to get perspective on that. And what if you have a spouse that dies suddenly? It happens to women, very young women. Sometimes your husband can go off to work, can be an accident at work, it can be an accident going to work, it can be a sudden heart attack, whatever it is. All of a sudden you're left alone. And you're left alone at first being terribly upset, inconsolable, not knowing what to do. And then a little bit of time goes by and you get angry. You're angry that he left you. You're angry that he made you face all of these things alone. Of course, it's all part of his life process and yours, over which most of the time he had no control. And it's, again, a stage that we need to get past as women to get to the next place where we can move on. So there are so many, many things. And each one of these topics can be a whole discussion on its own. Sometimes what happens as you get older is that, let's say you had a great job, you really had a very powerful job. You were a powerful person in whatever industry you were in, and you were the boss, or you were on your way up, or you had hit or gone through the glass ceiling, and all of a sudden you're a little bit older and you're at retirement age for whatever reason, and you suddenly have to reimagine yourself and who you are, because we sometimes tend to identify ourselves with our jobs, with our place in society, with our place in the world, rather than with the person that we are innately and the person that we have to find, because that person has been lost for a very long time in the nitty-gritty of just living life. And that can be really tough for a lot of people. I think another thing that's really hard for us as we get older is that so many of us lose our parents and the people from the generation before us. It's funny, I wrote a short story many, many years ago about that. And I remember it bringing me to tears every time I read that short story that I wrote. And it was about a woman in her mid-years, and I was much younger than that at the time. And she didn't have a great relationship with her mother, and she was a little bit estranged from her, though not terribly, living a very successful life with a very successful husband, with children who were doing great. And suddenly she gets the news that her mother died, and she has to take a train ride back home. And she is suddenly confronted with all of those feelings. And one of the things that I remember writing, and to this day I think about it, all of a sudden my protagonist thought of herself as, all of a sudden she was the older generation. And that's something that happens for us. When a parent dies, no matter how old we are, especially if they're both gone, we feel like we're orphans. You may be a 45 or a 50 or a 60-year-old orphan, but you have lost a big piece of who you are. And that's a tough, tough thing to deal with, because once again, the fabric that makes up our lives is made up of so many tiny little threads that are woven together that make us who we are. So that becomes a huge issue for us. And again, as I say, I think all of this stuff deserves its own time. All of this stuff deserves its own conversation. And if I can ever figure out this live thing and actually do it where it actually is a live whatever, I will come back and do it again. But for today, I truly feel like an idiot. I have to tell you that. Okay, then one of the things that we have to deal with also as we get older, very often we do ourselves a tremendous disservice, because what we do is we dwell on the past, we live in the past. So that if your life was better when you were younger, or if you were in a situation where you were living a great life and all of a sudden your life is more constrained and you have budgetary issues that you never had to deal with before, or you have health issues, or you have issues of estrangement, or whatever they are, you tend to look back on the glory days, the days when everybody was there. For me, it was our Thanksgiving dinners. It was all the players who came back year after year after year, and we relived that wonderful, wonderful time until they all started disappearing. Now, for me, my father died when I was very young. My mother died when I was 45. And that made it really, really difficult for me as well. There is no age at which I think we can relinquish that part of ourselves and our past and let go of the people who made us so much who we were. And if your relationship with a parent who died was unresolved, there are many other issues that you have to deal with. So all of this comes into that aging process, and you have got to find your own way. Again, it's just glossing over all of this makes really no sense because each one needs to be gone into, and I would like to do that. So if there are any specific things in this that you would like to delve into more deeply, let's do it. Let's do it on an individual basis. I think another thing that we do is we kind of dwell on what might have been. What if? If we had only done one thing differently, what would my life be like? What if? You can't do the what ifs because you are living the life you are living. And if you don't embrace the life that you're living no life. You're living in limbo, waiting for the life that's never going to happen if you don't allow it in. So don't hurt yourself by just living in the past. So that's a really hard thing. I think one of the things as we get older also is that we have many stresses in our lives, and stress is a killer. You really don't want to be dealing with that kind of stress without trying to mitigate it in some way. Find something that interests you. Find something that excites your passion. There may be something that was a hobby you thought about taking up when you were younger, but you were too busy. Find something that gives you excitement, that makes you want to get up for a new day and start something new and be the person that you are innately inside if you only let yourself be. So once again, that's really important. You also can try to meditate. I know I started meditating many, many years ago, and it made a huge, huge difference in my life. Centers you. It is very hard when you meditate for the first or second time to get rid of all the thoughts, because as you try to empty your mind of thoughts, other thoughts come to fill their place. It takes practice, but it is an experience that is so, so incredible. And I could tell you about some very miraculous things that have happened to me in meditation. Let me see. Of course, as we get older, as in my generation and those close to it or beyond, we have to deal with the physical changes in our lives, and that's really tough because those physical changes are really, really hard to deal with. Let me take me. I mean, I've been the kind of person who has always said, I can do that, whatever it is. And that's another thing, by the way. I'm going to digress for a minute. I apologize. There is either a delivery person or there's somebody walking in the street. What nerve. So bear with us as my little girl announces to the world that she's here and she is taking care of the house. That's my Ruby. Okay, the boys sort of sit back and let her bark her head off. Sometimes they'll join in, but usually it's her. But, oh God, I forgot what I was saying now. That's one of the dangers. Shoot. Oh, the things that excite you and the things that you might want to take up. I think my YouTube channel was part of that. It was part of a way of sharing, I think, the experiences. And my feeling was, it always is, in everything that I do, in every job that I've ever done, in certainly in my staging and my helping people with their making moves to better their lives. I want to make life better for one person. It's one person at a time. That's all. And if we can make a difference in one person's life, and that person can make a difference in one or two people's lives, and so on and so on and so on, the ripples in that stream are so far-reaching as to make our lives infinitely, infinitely better. And if you ever think that you're not worthy, or your life has been meaningless, or you have not contributed to life, I always think of the movie that they play every Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life. And when they're going back after he wishes that he had never been born and he has granted his wish for a while so he gets to see what the world would have been like without him in it, think about it yourself. All of the people who are part of your life, their lives would have been far different because you were not there to have the impact that you had on their lives. So we are all of us, important. And we all have a contribution to make, no matter what that contribution is. For the person who has a serious issue with drinking, maybe there is a guy who is, or a woman, who is lying out in the street, not able to cope with life and using drugs or alcohol to just anesthetize themselves and get through it. That person also provides a service for all of us in the sense that it teaches us something. And I think as souls, we're very brave. I have a whole theory about that, but I'm not going to get into it now because it will not go along with what some of you think, and I certainly don't want to offend anybody, but well, that's for another time or another smaller group if anybody's interested in that. But again, not for here, not for now. I think one of the hardest things for women as they age, especially for beautiful women, I think aging is much harder for beautiful women than it is for the rest of us. Because if you were valued all of your life based upon the fact that you were so pretty, that people would stop and go, oh my God, look at her, she's a beauty, then what happens when the first wrinkle appears? What happens when the jowls come? Yes, you can have intervention. Yes, a lot of people do. I know a lot of those people. And what they do is they will have their plastic surgeries, and often they make them look really terrific for a while. Life catches up. They have multiple surgeries over a period of years. And in my experience, after a while, they don't even look remotely like the beautiful women that they once were. I don't even see the woman in that plastic looking face. And again, please don't think don't take it as my being against plastic surgery. I'm not. But I think when women are addicted to it because they're so afraid of the aging process, they could be headed down a difficult road for themselves. Yes, some people have it, they look really good all the time, but more often than not, in the people that I've seen over time, it does take its toll. So I think it is harder for the very, very beautiful men and women of this world as they age, especially if you're in a profession that demands that of you. Imagine if you are, in front of the camera. If that's your life and you're suddenly not wanted or needed anymore, it's hard to go from star to character actor if that is who you are. It is harder for the people in many positions where they are in front of the camera to keep their jobs, and they're often passed over for somebody younger, and there are all kinds of things that come with that as well. And I think one of the things that we deal with that can make our lives so much more miserable is that we tend to live in that place of negativity. You can't do that to yourself. If you wallow in the negativity of what you perceive your issue to be, and they're very real issues, and you can be in a terrible place, and many people are. But if you wallow in the negativity, you stay in the negativity. Negative thoughts bring negative things. Thoughts are the building blocks of the things in our lives. So you are creating your reality by being negative or being positive. I truly believe that positivity makes a huge difference. and I live it. I really live it. It doesn't mean that I'm a Pollyanna. It doesn't mean that I'm always positive, and Lord knows I've gone through and I'm going through some difficult times. But it's all part of the process that we call life, and it's something that we signed on for. So here we are doing the best job that we can with it. And I think we have to allow ourselves to just experience life as it is. I think in the final thought that I'm going to go with today is that one of the greatest difficulties, and my father said this, and my father died very young. My father was not quite 60. But I remember him saying one of the cruelest jokes about aging is that you feel exactly the same inside. And I know I certainly have. Does that mean on the days when I ache and my pains are terrible, I can barely get out of bed, or the depression is real and it's heavy? No, but for the most part, we don't feel substantially different inside. We feel exactly like the people we always were, but we're not. And we have to accommodate the challenges of aging. I will tell you, I have seen a huge difference in my physical way of being able to deal with some things that I've done my entire life in the past year. I can no longer get down, I can't get down on my knees. I certainly can't get down on my knees and scrub a floor. Neither do I have any particular interest in doing it anymore. There are far easier ways of doing it. If I have to get into a bottom cabinet in my kitchen, I can't sit on the floor cross-legged anymore and then just get up. Doesn't work. So I've learned to accommodate it by getting a one-step stool and sitting on that, and being able to work on the cabinet and still be able to get up without wanting to call, and press one of those buttons that says, I've fallen and I can't get up. I don't want to be there, but there are days. So there are changes that we have to make. I used to do a lot of my own painting in the house. And anytime I saw something that needed to change, and I was not the kind to want to change things all the time at all, but I'm dying to paint one wall in the room downstairs that I had staged with the gray furniture that you've seen a couple of times in my videos. The far wall, I really want to do it in a darker gray. And I have a piece of furniture I want to put on that wall, and I've got a beautiful silver leaf mirror that I want to put above it. I can't do it myself anymore, and I recognize that I can't, and that's tough for me. Yes, I could paint most of the wall. I don't trust myself to get up there. And by the way, I cannot get up. If I had to reach something high, I would just step up onto a chair. I can't do that anymore. In order to get up onto a chair, I need a midpoint. So now I need that step stool for the first step, and then get up on the chair. However, if I'm alone in the house, I won't risk it. It's too risky. I don't want to fall. A friend of mine recently thought that she could change a light bulb. She'd done it before, and she wound up losing her balance, and she wound up falling. She wound up breaking some bones on top of her foot, and for months now, they're not healing right. She had surgery on it. She may have to have a second surgery on it. Things are not the same, and you need to accommodate the changes, because if you don't, life may just teach you a lesson. So I have to accept those changes, as we all do. Life is different as we get older. It just is, like it or not. It's good, and there are so many things that are better at our age. Well, when I say our age, as you get older. Because you get to the point where you say, I don't have to do that. I have an incredible BS quotient at this point. I have little tolerance for it. When something rings that bell for me that it's not real, I'm done, and I have to move on, because I just don't have the patience for it anymore. All I need from anybody in my world is be real. Be real and be nice. Those are the two things I need. So what I'm going to have to do is I am going to have to, and the phone starts ringing. I was waiting for that to happen. It actually took longer than it usually does. So I'm going to end this here for today with a real quick. Again, I told you this is my whiteout wig. This is my hairdo. I adore it. The makeup that I did today, and I wore red lipstick, and you know I am not a red lipstick person, so it will probably be a very long time before I wear red lipstick again. My eye makeup was in the greens today. I had no idea it was going to be in the greens, but I do like it. The palettes that I used were the Urban Decay Full Spectrum, and I've had this palette for a long time and don't use it that much. I really should more because it's got some really phenomenal colors in it. So that is a fun thing to do. I use my Morphe for the transition shades. I use all of the other stuff that I've been talking to you about lately. And I have to tell you, I am seeing a definite, considerable difference in my neck and this area. Do you see it? I don't know if you do yet, but it is considerable. I don't want to call the Clarins a phenomenal product yet, but it looks really promising. It really, really does. The bags, you know my bags. You know them almost as intimately as I do. This whole side is gone. This whole side is better. And as I say, in my world, it looks a whole lot better than it does in the camera's lens. So that's it for today, folks. You know that I love you very much. I really, truly tried to make this a live stream, and it didn't work because I'm an idiot, but I'll figure it out, and hopefully with the help of the rest of you. And I guess it's going to go up as whatever it's going to go up as, and I will see you all soon. I am so sorry. I so wanted you to be part of this. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. Now watch me screw this up. Okay.